Hey, today on Free Field Training, we're going to be talking about GPS trackers. I have been a police officer for 18 years, and as such, I've seen the full spectrum of where GPS trackers started and where they have gone. And where they have gone is mostly to people using things like AirTags, AirPods, things like that, as like impromptu GPS trackers. And I think there's a big misconception, not only in the law enforcement community, but in public, general public, of how those AirTags and AirPod trackers and things like that work, the consumer off the shelf GPS trackers. Now, back in the day when GPS was relatively a new thing and having GPS trackers was very expensive, GPS trackers worked by being planted onto a vehicle or some device that you wanted to keep track of, and you would have to physically go back and get it to find out where that device had been. So using the satellite system, the GPS would know where it was at and it would record that data, and you have a battery or you would plug it into a power source on whatever you wanted to track. And then you'd have to go recover that thing, or it would have to have cell phone service in order to stream that data to you. And it was very expensive. Now, over the years, this has become something that's available to consumers at a lower cost. But you still have the issue of you need a cell phone connection and clear GPS ability, and that's still an expensive thing. You're basically talking a cell phone. And most of the components of a cell phone, being able to use a mobile data or uh, Wi-Fi and have a GPS device inside. People have this tendency to believe, because what they know about GPS trackers and especially original iPhone Find My Phone features, people could track their phone, and because the phone had mobile data service and it also had a GPS in it, if the tracker was live, they would be able to track their phone to within 3 feet. And now the marketing for AirTags, AirPods, various accessories for cell phones that allow you to track their location pretty accurately, as far as the consumer is concerned, they believe that that's a GPS tracker. And so it creates some issues when they lose that thing or that thing gets stolen and they're trying to track down where it is. It doesn't work the same way. Before we get too far into the explanation of exactly how all of that works, I want to mention the sponsors for today's video. There's always going to be sponsors for these videos, and they're going to be in the links in the description down below. Today we are highlighting Safe Life Defense, as we do very often on the channel. They have a boatload of body armor and gloves and pouches and all sorts of police equipment and accessories that you should check out. There's a link and a coupon code down in the description. I especially like their level 3A plus armor. It is a very good blend between high protection and very good price for people who need to buy their own body armor for work. So if you're in the industry and you're in the market for body armor, or if you're not and you just want to have body armor, they sell to absolutely everybody. Check out that link and use the coupon code FFT10 for 10% off at Safe Life Defense. So the way AirTags work is they're a Bluetooth device that connects to your phone or to whatever else in the Apple network and sphere they can connect to. But they only connect via Bluetooth. So if you've got a single AirPod, the AirPod case, and another AirPod, you can track those things, and to the end user, it appears to be that it's GPS tracking. What it's actually doing is connecting to the device, and then the device knows, given how far away it is via Bluetooth, about where that thing is sitting at. So for you, if you drop your AirPod on the ground and you go back and go, oh, where do I need to find this? Or if you have an AirTag on your luggage and you put your luggage down and you don't know where it's at, and you go, oh, where can I find that at? It's easy enough to go back, and it shows you the last place that that thing had connection with an Apple product. This is not a GPS tracker. If that AirTag gets picked up by somebody, let's say you have one attached to your luggage and the luggage gets picked up and it gets walked away. If you're at an airport and it's very busy and lots of people have Apple products, there's lots of AirPods and AirTags and mostly people's iPhones and tablets connected to Wi-Fi around in the area, you're going to be able to see where that thing moves pretty accurately. The problem you get is if you lose an AirPod, or you lose something that has an AirTag on it, or some other similar device that works through Bluetooth, if that device gets picked up by someone and walked away, and it gets walked away somewhere where there isn't a nearby compatible device with Bluetooth connection and connection to the internet and a GPS, you are not going to be able to find it. I know from personal experience that lots of cops think that these are GPS trackers and are going to work like GPS trackers. And I've had to prove to several people over the years by taking one of their AirPods, their earpod things, and just driving away with it to an alley where I know that's unlikely to be nearby within Bluetooth distance of another Apple device, shut off the iPhone that, whoever else is in my car has with me, and go, okay, where's your device now? And they go, oh, it shows where it was last connected to my phone, back where you picked it up. I was like, yep, because that's how they work. They're not actually GPS trackers. Another way this becomes important for law enforcement is we'll very often get people that'll call and say, hey, I lost my whatever, and it gets tracked to here. You have to know how that technology works before you can take any action on it. And you also need to know what to tell people about how that technology works. Because if you go to a call where someone has lost it, their earpods, sorry, and they're very expensive, and the people say, well, they're tracked to this house, right? And you'll say, okay, well, show me the tracking that you're using, and they hand you a tablet, and very often there'll be a little pin on that address, and they'll say it's 123 Main Street. It says that it's inside this house. And then you have to know that that's not a GPS tracker, and it's not giving you live updates necessarily, and you have to know how to work the system. So two things with that. One is if you take whatever device it is that they're saying they're tracking an AirPod or an AirTag from, and you just zoom out, you'll realize that there's a dot in the center of the area of probability for that device. And the area of probability for it can be close to a mile, or it can be several miles. It can be your entire town or your entire beat can be inside that area of probability. And the people will scream up and down because they're upset that it's right there. It says that it's at 123 Main. You scroll out and you go, oh, see that big blue circle? It could be anywhere inside that blue circle. That's a 20 square block area. So before you go pounding down the door of the people at this house, we can knock on the door and to satiate you, go ask them and talk to them about it. You can see the type of people that live there. But I'm going to tell you right now, the probability that it's actually in that house is pretty low. It's just that area of probability. The other issue you have is that people are going to call and they're going to say, I tracked my whatever that's not a phone, that doesn't have a GPS and doesn't have its own capability to connect to mobile networks, or whether that's integral to the phone or if it's using Wi-Fi. And they're going to say it was last located in this house. And sometimes you won't get that area of probability. And it helps make sure that you don't have way more problems with GPS tracking and with this person coming back and say busting out all the windows on this house, if you can consult with them about the probability that it wasn't actually ever at that house. And they get very angry about it, but if you explain it's not a GPS tracker, it literally just connects to Wi-Fi. So somebody could have walked past this house, connected to a phone that's connected to the Wi-Fi in that house for any length of time, and that was the last time it was located, and it's going to show that that was the last place it was located. Doesn't mean that it was ever physically inside of the house. If you don't tell them that, if you tell them, oh, it's a GPS tracker, we talked to them, but, of course, they're not going to tell us nothing, so, that's just the way people are. We'd have to go get a warrant. You got to go talk to them in the morning. There's a pretty good likelihood that you're going to get a call there later for all the windows getting broken out, or the car getting lit on fire, or all the tires getting slashed, or whatever at that house. So that's kind of the long and short on GPS tracker technology. Now, there are professional-grade GPS trackers. There's private investigators that use them. Police departments can get warrants for them. Sometimes you need a warrant, sometimes you don't. The case law changes all the time. But those are operating off very separate systems. They're either something that you have to place and then pick back up to find out where the vehicle or article has been, or they work off of like a LoJack system where it can constantly give out a radio signal and a cell phone signal and all sorts of other stuff when it gets stolen so that we can be actively tracked. Although those LoJack type systems are getting less and less common. We can talk more about LoJack in the future if people want to. It's not a thing that we're running into as much anymore. Or it's basically a cell phone that's tracking inside. But if it's an AirTag, an AirPod, something like that, any small device that's being connected through Bluetooth to a phone, it's not actually GPS tracking it. It's just telling you where the last place it connected to the network was. And very often you get somebody that'll be at the laundromat and they'll say, oh, I put my AirPod, fell somewhere on the floor and now somebody stole it and they're still in that laundromat. You need to detain everyone in the laundromat. And it would probably help to know that that's not how those work at all. And in all likelihood, it's that AirPod's gone. It's in the trash, or it's in a bin somewhere, or it ended up in someone else's laundry and they don't have an Apple product and they drove it home with it in their laundry, and then now it's gone until it pops back up on the network. Now, eventually, if it's not something that's actually stolen, no one's actually trying to conceal it, if you keep checking back for that AirPod, you might actually find out that it's at some garbage dump, or it pops back up in another state, or it pops up at literally at someone's house and is moving. And of course, if you find an AirPod in your laundry, you're gonna be like, whatever, you're gonna throw it in the trash. So then it's gonna go into the trash to the garbage dump. And these are the types of things that sometimes come to the front desk at a police station. And if you know how the technology works, it makes it a lot easier to explain to other people. So now, since it's a live stream, I'm going to go to the comments and questions. It is pretty late, so I don't expect there's going to be a lot of them. Hopefully there's something that's topical, and then we'll take the non-topical ones after that. Hopefully we'll wrap this up in a few minutes. Let's see what everybody has to say. Hello, hello. Mr. Timbury says, police technologists, I don't think that's a real thing, honestly, should look at the electronics used for UAVs. GPS, Wi-Fi camera, they're very cheap, small, and light. As long as the device isn't considered life safety, they're sub $100. Well, I mean, you could make something like that fairly cheaply. Cell phones have come down a lot in price, but it's not like buying a pack of 3 AirTags and putting them on something. So the other issue you have with it is AirTags don't require a constant battery source. And so for most things, GPSs, because you have to have basically a cell phone running all the time and a GPS running all the time, or at least Wi-Fi, you have to either have a source of charging, which is difficult for most articles that you're going to be tracking, other than vehicles, or you have to have a battery that has enough life, which then even today makes it fairly large. It's going to be a fairly big device that you're going to have to hide on something. Let's say you wanted to track your laptop or your laptop case. Even if you slave it off of the laptop battery, that's a finite amount of life that you're going to have in it. So those are kind of the choices that we have to make with them. I will say that if you have a product that tracks through GPS and it has a large battery and it's still active, you can get very accurate tracks through those things. So things like MacBooks and iPads, the pads that people use, and iPhones, you can get within 2 or 3 feet. I've literally been able to locate which person it was walking down a sidewalk that had an iPhone. So there is a lot of positives to the technology, but the offshoot stuff, the cheaper stuff, as often is the case with any product and technology, is not exactly what the more expensive version of it is. And there's physical limitations, not just the cost of the device, it's powering it. That's the issue. Snack says, how reliable are geofence warrants and how are they related to GPS tracking? I don't know what geofence warrants are. That might be a local terminology. Are you talking about how certain agencies can get warrants for all of the information that was sent in a particular area? Well, for that, it's not necessarily going to be GPS tracking. If you're talking about getting information, everything that was put out in a certain area or what phones were in a certain area, that's called triangulation. And that's kind of the cheaper, low-rent version of GPS tracking, is triangulation off of cell phone towers. So if you have a cell phone tower here and a cell phone tower here and a cell phone tower here, by the distance from the cell phone towers, it can calculate with at least 2 points to some level of accuracy, and with 3 points, a pretty good level of accuracy of where that device is at. The cell towers have to know where your phone is at in order to work. That's how cell phones work. It's a radio system. It has to know where the phone is at approximately in order for the phone to get a signal on. If you're only pinging off of one tower, it just tells you it's somewhere within this distance of the tower. If it's between 2 towers, you can triangulate between the rough distances of the 2 towers and get kind of an ellipse of an area that it's at. And that's normally shown as a circle the size of the ellipse. And then with 3 towers, you can tell really accurately where it's at, but it's normally only within like 500 feet or something. The numbers keep going down. as the technology gets better. And if you have 4 or 5 towers that it's picking off of, you can get a pretty accurate read on where that device is at. So having the GPS off on your phone probably wouldn't make any difference in whether or not your data or whether your phone was there or not would get scooped up in some sort of warrant that was aimed at what was in this particular area. It's not going to use your GPS to get that information. At least it doesn't have to use the GPS to get that information because the cell phone company and the towers have to know where your phone is approximately in order to make the phone work. So it's just going to be what was in that area. Snack says opinions on the GPS trackers that can shoot out of patrol cars, push bumpers for pursuits. Some agencies have tried that. I haven't heard a lot of great successes with it. And even if you do get success with that, what you're going to end up with is you're going to locate the vehicle, but not necessarily the occupants. And vehicles don't tend to commit crimes. It's normally the occupants of the vehicles, so they're of limited usefulness given the cost. Given unlimited money, we would love to have all the stuff, but since money is not unlimited, we should probably aim at the things that are most cost effective. And I don't know that that one is particularly cost effective. I haven't personally used them, but agencies near me have, and most of them have gotten rid of them after a couple of years. Mr. Tim Booty says, I think this was more of a geofence restraining order, not allowed in the area X. Detectives were getting real-time notices for special subjects. Well, generally, those types of things where there's a restraining order, order protection, or something that says you're not allowed within a certain distance, they're not operating off of a phone. They're operating off of a leg restraint. It's like it's a box that gets strapped to the person's leg. And those are pretty technologically sophisticated pieces of machinery. And they have a bunch of extra special sensors inside to see where you're at and whether you've tampered with the device and whether or not you've been charging it. It basically has constant connectivity with the system that they're monitoring it on. So that's not just GPS tracking. My understanding from those is that it'll also operate off of cell phones. It's very much like LoJack, where there's lots of redundancies in many of those trackers and the systems. They're the same things that are used for like a house arrest. So if instead of going to jail for 6 months, you get 8 months of house arrest or 6 months of house arrest or something, where there's a little station that it communicates with basically via Wi-Fi, and there's a tracker on it and several other things. So normally those aren't operating off of GPS tracking. It's just saying how far from the base station it's supposed to be at. Now, the ones for orders of protection tend to be more based on GPS, and they will activate if you get within a certain distance of another person that is also wearing a tracker that's the protected party. And those systems only work if there's two, like they'll put a geofence around the person's home and around their place of work and on the person that has the tracker on. If you get anywhere near there and the tracker that's on, whoever was the respondent for the order protection, which is whoever was convicted or is charged with some sort of crime against the other person, it'll send a notification out to a monitoring service, and the monitoring service will send a notification out to the police or sheriff's department or whoever else has jurisdiction to go out and respond, and they go check on the person to make sure they're all right. Snack says, I've heard from detectives that a lot of people forget about the infotainment systems in their cars that are almost computers/phones have tracking. So oftentimes those, after the car is listed as stolen, they'll start telling us where it's at. There's several car companies that load LoJack and will load GPS trackers of various kinds in the cars when they're sold, a lot of high-end cars, and it's starting to siphon down into lower-end cars. The only ones that aren't getting them are kind of base model or cheaper cars. Most things that have some sort of infotainment system, especially the American car companies, are loading up something in their mid-level and above cars that can track, maybe not immediately, but eventually track where the stolen device is. And the device is like integral to the car because it's the stereo. I know Chevy for a long time was loading their cars automatically with an infotainment system and like a connectivity system that as soon as the car was listed as stolen, it would pick it up just like LoJack used to, and it would give us notifications whenever the car was stationary. So if you stole a Chevy, in the last 5 years that was brand new, we would just come pick it up when it was parked somewhere. That was easy enough. So that's why you don't see as many stolen Chevys. And I think Dodge was doing that for a while. I know Subaru is. Subaru does their connectivity package, and if your connectivity package is on, as soon as your car is stolen, the police can track it as long as they, all the pieces come together with it. Pilot 727 says, have you seen the AirTag in the car tailpipe? I know all the suburban moms are scared they're getting stalked because some weirdo put a tracker in their car to rob them. Well, also the GPS trackers, like the AirTags, don't work like that. If you have an AirTag on your car and you have an Apple device, which is the only way that AirTag is actually going to track you, is if it's physically using your device to track you, because they'll have to connect to the Apple network. Your phone will know and notify you, or your kid's tablet will know and notify you in the back seat that there's an AirTag traveling with you. It's actually kind of a problem for people that travel on trains every day. That'll pop up every once in a while. There's an AirTag traveling with them that probably shouldn't be. So that's not as big of a risk as people make it out to be. Because if the target, whoever's getting tracked, doesn't have an Apple product in the car, it doesn't work. Or a compliant product, it won't work. And also, if they do, it's going to notify you, hey, there's this unknown AirTag that is traveling with you. And then you're going to need a notification, and at least then and then you're on the alert. So they don't really work. They would not work too well for stalking. I'm not saying it could never happen, but it's not the best tool for that job. Think Music says, is what you're talking about the OnStar thing in car manufacturers sell. They don't necessarily sell them. Sometimes they're preloaded in. But yes, there are also similar systems. There's telematic systems for there's like My Ford Connect and a telematic system for Subaru, and all these places have different telematic systems. OnStar is just the most popular name brand version of it that I think was preloaded into Chevy for quite a while. But all of those systems work in very similar fashions. Most of them are used primarily for recovering stolen autos. So your car might get stolen. Let's say you get carjacked, or somebody steals your keys and takes the car, but it's going to be a one-time use thing, because once they park it and shut it off, the local flatfoot like me is just going to come tow the thing away. Think Music says, aren't putting AirTags then basically putting a target on your head saying, I have something valuable, rob me? Not necessarily. Like my father-in-law uses AirTags for his cats. So if his cats are in the apartment, he can find them in the apartment. And if they get out, he can walk around with his phone until he gets within distance of the cat that it connects via Bluetooth. And then he knows where the cat's at and he can go get the cat. Very useful thing. They're great for if you have something that, sometimes things aren't of that much value and you just want to be able to remember where they're at. You're constantly losing your keys. You put an AirTag on them. Now it's going to tell you where the last place your keys were at. So if you put them down at a counter at a restaurant or something, or fall out of your pocket, and you go, oh, my keys are still back at the restaurant. You can drive back there and find them instead of, searching over hill and dale looking for your keys. The technology is solid for what it's designed for, but what it's designed for is when you lose things, not when they get stolen. All right, we're 23 minutes in. I think that's more than enough. It seems we don't have any more questions or comments popping up. Thank you for everybody for stopping in late at night to discuss GPS trackers and AirTags with me. Hopefully this helps some people out with their investigations and with understanding how law enforcement and GPS tracking works. Until next week, you guys be safe. Take care of each other. Check out those links down in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.